Welcome to the Pause and Effect podcast, the podcast that delves deep into the fascinating world of veterinary medicine, animal care, and the remarkable stories that shape the lives of our furry companions. I'm your host, Dr. Carra, and I invite you to join me on this captivating journey as we explore the intricacies of the veterinary field. In this episode, we'll be exploring the incredible journey of Dr. Charlotte, a passionate and dedicated veterinarian who's traversed the diverse landscapes of animal care and veterinary practice. With 7 years of experience at Onderstepoort under her belt, Dr. Charlotte's story is one of transformation, growth, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Her journey began in 2013 as she embarked on her veterinary career as a small animal practitioner in Johannesburg. And now, Dr. Charlotte finds herself at the helm of Khula Vet, a culmination of her experiences and dreams. Khula Vet has a vision to empower fellow colleagues to thrive within the work environments, to discover the unique niches, and to elevate the standards of care across the board. Partnering with the ever-inspiring Dr. Michelle, Dr. Charlotte's pursuit of excellence continues to evolve, and she leads by example and strives to make a lasting impact on the veterinary community. So if you're as intrigued as I am to delve into the heart of Dr. Charlotte's journey, to uncover the motivations behind the creation of Khula Vet, and to explore the unbreakable bond between veterinary care and the lives of our beloved animals, then stay tuned for a captivating conversation that promises to leave a lasting pause and effect. Welcome to the Pause and Effect podcast, where every story has a paw print and every impact is profound.
Okay, thanks, Cara. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Charlotte. I'm one of the owners, I'm one of the founders of Khula Vet, and Khula Vet is a bespoke veterinary training company, but that's quite a formal description of it, and I'd like to say it's hopefully so much more than that. So we started in 2020, and basically how it came about is that I, at that point in time, had resigned from a previous role and was really in this point where COVID had just struck, so it was full on lockdown. And no one was needing veterinary locums. Obviously everyone was on short staff. So it was an interesting time, obviously in the world, in the country, but specifically in our profession. And it was in hindsight, at that point in time, challenging, but in hindsight, phenomenal, because it gave me the space to really actually sit and be like, okay, what do I want to be? What do I want to do with this degree? What really makes me tick, what sets my soul on fire, that kind of soul-searching questions. And I came up with the idea that I wanted to do this company that is really focused around supporting vets, but more actually empowering young vets so that they can thrive in their profession because of the challenges that I'd had throughout, finding my space, my authentic place in veterinary science. And then I contacted my colleague Michelle Markram, who was Michelle Armour before she got married, and we worked together in Joburg. And I said, I've got this idea. And I probably sounded crazy. I was like, I've got this idea. I don't really know. I've got this vision, but I don't know what, obviously, the pieces are yet. I don't even have a name for this vision. I was like, I promise you I'm not crazy, but I have this vision and I can't do it on my own. I don't want to do it on my own. I want a partner. And so Michelle's also a vet, and she qualified a year after me at Onderstepoort. And she was like, yes, let's do it. And then we sat, and it was hilarious because we were like, okay, so Zulu's my second language, so I really love the language. And my mum grew up on a farm, so she speaks it fluently. So anyway, Zulu is a big thing as part of my life. And so we were throwing around words, and it was hilarious because we were like, okay, well, we're going to have a meeting with sponsors soon. We better put a name on this thing, this company, this vision. And so we were like, okay, we like the word grow, but that's a bit weird. We like the word thrive. And I was like, no, but there's a whole chain of pharmacies. And then I was like, but does thrive not sound like thrash? And then you're like, no, I don't want to use anything that sounds like thrash. And then we were like, okay, well, let's think of the Zulu definition of of the word grow and thrive, and it's Khula. So that's where
what a great
we came
name.
Up with Khula. Yeah, so that's how Khula was born. And then it was quite interesting because we went all guns blazing to some of the big players in our industry. Hill's Pet Nutrition, Boehringer Ingelheim, which is a pharmaceutical company that makes like lots of different drugs, and like a common name that pet owner would relate to is like NexGard, so that flea and tick treatment. And we were like, hello, we're Khula, do you want to do business with us? And we were just really fortunate that they could see our vision as well. And then that's where it started. So it's grown really quickly. It's still just Michelle and myself, but we partner with obviously different industry partners, but we also partner with different vets, which is so cool. So it's very collaborative. And we, in a sense, the main thing that we do is that we put together, so if we look at just the young vets, we have put together contact points with them throughout their future career. So when they're in their final year at Onderstepoort, we have them with us, and we'll maybe talk about that a bit later. When they're in their community service year, we're there with them, and we've got a course that we call it our CCS survival kit. So that's like 4 modules. How do you deal with working with nothing?
Transition
basically
into the workplace.
How do you work with nothing? Watch this course. And we talk to them about like locuming and the do's and don'ts, and don't be a douche and have realistic expectations on the private practice industry, and don't go overseas. We don't want you to go overseas.
We need you.
We need you. And then we, when they are about to move into private practice, so this course, the CCS Vet Study Group. Listen, they're not the best names, but times were tough, and we just slap names on these projects. We probably should rebrand. But that's probably the project that we're the most inspired about, and that is prepping for private practice.
Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Carra.
Hi, Doc. It's Jackson the Jack Rossi here, and boy, am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.
Let's get back to our conversation on the Pause and Effect podcast. Okay, so let's talk about the need.
Okay.
Why did you identify there was a need for this?
So
It's a personal experience?
yeah, 100%. So we came up with Khula. The inspiration was it because we wished we had a Khula when we graduated and we entered the profession. So we didn't have CCS, that wasn't a compulsory thing that we had to do. So you go straight from Onderstepoort into private practice. You walk into your first day, and it's absolutely daunting. And and then obviously all the challenges which we experience. So from my personal experience, I was 2 years in. I had a wonderful practice. I was working in Sandton. You couldn't ask for a better clientele. I had a patient mentor. So all the boxes were ticked. This wasn't an issue of toxic work culture or anything like that. And I just was slowly starting to burn out. I was starting to battle with compassion fatigue, and I was like, okay, 12 days on, 2 days off, that's the standard for our industry. And I was like, maybe that's the problem. So let me move to the next spot. Lovely practice as well in Sunninghill. It's like literally was like the quality of life practice. And then again, the compassion fatigue, the burnout started again. And I got to the point where I was 100% convinced that the only solution was to, take my own life. That's where I got to. And it's not uncommon for vets. I think everyone knows that. Well, maybe not enough people know that, but certainly us vets know that. And so, there was so much, for me specifically, shame and guilt about this has been my lifelong dream. This is literally my whole identity is around being a vet. And I can't seem to find any happiness in this, let alone find happiness. It was causing me such immense suffering. And so as a vet, it's not a far hop, skip and a jump to be like, well, euthanasia or ending a life is part of our toolkit of treatment and options. and
it's humane.
And it's humane. And so that's where my thought process was starting to go. So that's obviously awful. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy to be at that point. And it's a very dark place, etc. And so then I finally, with wonderful support, got to the point, long story short, where I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to explore and try something else. And so I went through my veterinary journey, and then I ended at coming to Khula, which was wonderful because I finally found my niche in my profession. And why I say I wish I'd had a Khula then is because all I would have wanted was a senior colleague to sit with me and be like, it's okay, this is normal. And so I just think maybe Michelle and I were maybe a decade behind what is the current trend now, because there's an enormous amount of support now, and it's only getting better. You know, you've got the likes of Des Rees and Human Co. You've got such key players in our industry that are actively driving mental health awareness, burnout, compassion fatigue. But I don't know, it didn't feel like it was really there back then.
So I'm going to ask what might be viewed as a bit of a controversial question, but obviously you know I qualified in the UK at Edinburgh, so I don't have a full understanding of the setup with Honest Word, but is there a problem with the recruitment of vets at Honest Word? The understanding is that you have to be academically capable of pursuing a degree in veterinary medicine, surgery. Now, that's one way to filter out people who may be not capable of academically coping with the degree, but it's more than that. You know, it requires grit and potentially there are people out there who have a true passion and drive for it that are not getting the opportunity to take on the degree because they haven't reached certain academic grades.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a problem with recruiting vets at that point, or?
So it's so multifactorial because there's definitely a selection process that leads to us having a collection of individuals that are definitely obviously in the upper layer of academic competence. You know, it's pretty much the biggest bunch of overachievers in all the land go and are on one farm in Honestwood. And that's awesome. But with that absolutely comes personality traits. I mean, I don't know much about psychology and stuff, so I'm just speaking from experience, is that with these people being of a certain intelligence level, academic capabilities, you do high achievers, you have people that have impossibly high standards set upon themselves. And yes, a lot of them then aren't inherently the best at maybe dealing or don't have the other sort of skill sets or personality traits that are maybe going to make them cope with such a high pressure, high stress environment. I remember my partner's a vet, and when he graduated 7 years before me, they had interviews. And he was like, I can't believe I actually got in because I wasn't that academically strong. But obviously the people interviewing him were very confident that he had the characteristics that would make a good vet. I don't know which one is better because there's a lot of subjectivity to the, back in the day option. There's a lot of bias, etc. So I almost can't blame the process of getting into vet because you've got to at some point make it objective. You've got to make it, okay, this is the cutoff. Can you cut it or not? It is a academically demanding degree, so you're delusional if you think that you can make it through if you're not academically strong. I think that the problem, in my perception, is coming further on. I think that Honestwood is doing everything they can.
Particularly
now to equip young vets to be better prepared. But there's only so much they can do. You can't jam every species, everything you've got to know about every species, and all of the other stuff that you need to be a vet into 6 years and then be expect it to all be perfect. I just think that's unrealistic. So again, I don't think what Honestwood is doing is wrong. I think that it's the reality of our profession once we're out. And that's where I believe we can have a bigger role to play, and that we are doing that. But we've got to be patient with the process. We now, this probably we'll only see the fruits of this labor maybe 10 to 30 years' time, which is a long waiting period. And maybe like you and I aren't going to benefit from it too much. Damn it. But I hope that the future generations will.
So the aim is to enable or equip our new vets to better cope with the profession, or to talk about, or is it a mentorship role that you're putting in place?
So yeah, Khula is very much a mentorship role. We focus more on the clinical aspects. So okay, you're entering private practice. You've got so much knowledge. It's all been sort of thrown up and jumbled in the air because you've been on your CCS year, which has equipped you in many ways to be resourceful, resilient, jack of all trades, make a plan.
So explain for the listeners, what is the CCS year?
So the CCS year is the compulsory community service year, where basically the vets get posted all over the country. It can be quite stressful for the young vet because they don't get really a choice where they go. So you
often away from home. Eh?
Yeah, a lot of them get put in the Hamadulas. It is what it is. So they get to choose, like, preferably this province, but, you sometimes just get put wherever. And it's a combination of can be an office post where you're purely doing admin. And that can create a lot of anxiety for them because then they feel like they're falling behind. And you've got an individual who throughout their entire varsity career have basically been competing to get into vet and then stay in vet, and you know what I mean. So you're almost always in this race. And then when you get put in a community service post and it's purely office-based, you feel like you're falling behind, and that's probably one of the cruelest things you can do to a vet, is when they don't feel like they are, on par, specifically young vets. So it's this crazy expectation they always have on themselves. So that's the office state post. And then you have the clinical posts where, great, now they get to do the clinical work, but they've got zero resources.
Support.
And the support is an issue. So sometimes they'll maybe be lucky to have a senior colleague there. Sometimes they have no one. And that's fine. I guess it definitely builds certain strengths. But it's obviously multi-layered. There's... I don't want to get into the political part of things, and we won't go there, but it is a bit of a mess up. Like in certain posts, there's no euthanasia. So what a difficult position as a young vet to find yourself in. You don't have a mentor, you don't even have a senior colleague on site. You've literally got an animal arriving that is suffering, and you don't even have the drug to be able to end its life, to end the suffering. So that's not fair. So there's so much that needs to change, but we know with everything in our country, that's also going to be years to come right. And so the young vets are becoming really resourceful. They're partnering with their private practice vets in the area. So it's not like it's all bad, but it is a lot.
And it's stressful.
So that's where we, and it's not, we're certainly not the only people doing this. We've got SAVA, which is the South African Veterinary Association. For years now, they've set up a mentor structure where these CCS vets are partnered with the private prac vets somewhere in the country, and they then it's a touch point. So it's
evolving.
It's evolving, but it has to happen faster because we're still losing colleagues. Colleagues are still taking their own lives. I know it's multifactorial. It would be really short-sighted to say, this is just because of veterinary science. That's not fair. No. We can't dump it all on our profession. But our profession, really, it's like, it's almost a pressure cooker for individuals that are vulnerable because of our inherent nature, because of our characteristics, because of just the general stress of being a vet.
So what have you put in place, sort of understanding all these pressure points? What have you set up to better equip them?
So we've got CCS Survival Kit, which is sort of let's start this way. Should I talk about Khula Outreach now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we start with, in their final year, they have to do a certain number of private practice electives. So what that means is, okay, sort it out yourself, go for a week, spend a week with a vet in private practice. It can be smallies, it can be mixed. See what they do, learn from your colleagues, get an idea of the profession, which I think is great.
And I think it's a bad time to say don't do it. Okay? It's a bit late.
It's a bit late, yeah. But the scary thing is a lot of the senior vets turn around and they're like, oh, if I was you, I wouldn't do this. And you're like, well, that's inspiring. Like, what a great way to start my career.
Good mentor.
Yeah, great mentoring. So that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, let's create a week here in Natal centered around rabies, and we'll maybe talk about that later, but rabies being the focus, rabies management, and let's invite vet students to come and spend a week with us. Let's get sponsorship, because we don't want people who can't afford it to be excluded. You know, not everyone comes from a wealthy background, is doing veterinary science, and let's talk about all the stuff that no one is talking about in certain ways. Obviously, there's a lot of people talking about it, but the stuff that was very meaningful to me is, okay, you're 2 years in and you hate private practice. What then?
Are there options?
Are there options? So it's exactly that, what you've said. There are options. Because it's when you feel like there is no other options, there is no other way out, that's when, obviously layered with all different types of maybe mental health considerations, burnout, compassion fatigue, that's when vets reach for the option which they know they always have as the last resort for our own patients, which is euthanasia. And then it's not, connect the dots there.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
So they've just qualified, they've done their CCS year, and they're about to embark on often private practice or potentially one of the other options. We could talk about those. It's a bit scary. So for a year, they haven't ultimately practiced their skill set. They're itching to be vets and to consult and to have access to all the resources they've been learning about and itching to use. So it's like thrown in the deep end, isn't it? And now, a word from our amazing sponsors who make the Pause and Effect podcast possible. To make a promise implies trust. To make a pledge creates expectation. And to make a commitment initiates responsibility. For more than 25 years, we have made it our mission to take the ifs, buts, and maybes out of premium pet food. That's why our experts put the best science behind our food, so your pet's health is put first. That's why when you seek value, we strive to give you more, like protecting your pets with our free accident benefits. And when you need great tasting food, our fresh meat taste delivers. You see, what sets us apart is not one thing, it's all these things combined. Because we understand that when it comes to your pet's health, you don't want doubt and uncertainty. You want absolutes, the absolute best given your means, like premium veterinary quality food of real value that doesn't cost an arm and a paw. So rest assured that any claim we make, we stand by. It's our commitment to your pets and our promise to you. In fact, we're so confident in what we stand for that we have made the ultimate promise to you. It's called the Ultra Pet Promise, 100% money-back guarantee, a no ifs, no buts, and no maybes kind of promise. We call it our satisfaction guarantee. Let's get back to our conversation on the Pause and Effect podcast.
It really is. And what is challenging is that you can sometimes have a bit of a disconnect. So it's so multi-layered. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Carra, you own your own practice, so you're like, it is multi-layered. But so you have these CCS vets who have earned very well in their year. And I'm not one for bashing them for that. Happy days. But the problem is...
student debt to try and recoup.
Student debt, jeepers. Like, you're living in the Pundoki land with no resources. Great.
There's got to be something to incentivize it, yeah.
What it does, unfortunately, do is that it skews the realistic perception on how we get paid as vets. So they're only going to maybe get paid the same way they did in their CCS year when they're like 10 to 15 years qualified. So whether we like it or not, you do adopt a certain lifestyle when you're earning a certain income. You get comfortable and used to a certain way of living. So why on earth would you want to go and work 10 to 12-hour days, take on a whole bunch of stress, et cetera, for I'm going to be honestly saying half the pay, maybe even like 3/4 of the pay. So we have that dynamic. So that's just purely the relationship that a young vet will have with the practice owner, because there's already a bit of a disconnect there. And then you have the natural or the obvious stresses which have always existed is you now need to learn how to build rapport with your clients. You now need to build a client base, and you've got to now deal with
competent.
Yeah, so you've got to develop your skills and then learn how to interact with privately paying pet owners.
Yeah.
And they come with a lot of expectations, as they should, because they're paying for a service. And so that can be quite stressful. So you've got this like total change in how you're being paid, your hours, your quality of life. It's really long hours. People have no idea the hours that vets put in. They don't get lunches. Everyone's like, you must take a lunch and protect your mental health. When? When would you like me to do that? You know what I mean? It's just,
you can't just leave that patient on the table because
and every
hit 12
pet
or
owner
1.
wants you to do everything like yesterday. And so it's a challenge.
demanding.
The first 1 to 2 years, and you say that to a young vet, you're like, and I think this is what Khula is all about, is that it's helping young vets manage expectations, mostly on themselves in a clinical capacity or sort of in a clinical framework. Like, you are going to be exhausted for the first 6 months.
That's normal.
That's normal.
Okay.
Sometimes, like in our trainings, I'm like, we could play a drinking game with the number of times I say that's normal. I'm saying you're going to, your life partner is going to look at you, or whatever person is in your life, and be like, who did you become? That's normal. You're going to probably wake up a year to 2 years in and go, is this it? Is this what I've chosen? That's normal. You know what I mean? So we like have these, and some people were like, oh, that's so negative. We're like, no, there's so much to celebrate of our profession. But if you go in delusional about what this, and you would think 7 years in, they would know what it entails. I don't know, that's maybe the part that we're not getting right at OP. Or even before they go and try and compete to be a vet, is what is it, what are the non-negotiables, what is the stuff that's never going to change? And maybe that's what we still got to, but then I don't know if people would want to be a vet.
No, we don't want to discourage people.
Yeah.
We need more vets.
And I don't want to sound pessimistic. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant profession. It's amazing.
So let's talk some of the pressures, particularly on private practice. There's definitely a vet shortage. Why?
Okay, so there's a vet shortage because there's a vet shortage all over the world. So there's a global crisis that there are not enough vets. And I think when the reasons behind that are quite multifactorial, but COVID was a big one. For some reason, the whole world decided they would get pets, which, happy days, it means that we're in demand. But I don't think, obviously, there wasn't a turnover of number of vets graduating. So that, in a sense, is great because we're in a demand. It means that if you finally do become a vet, you will always have a job, now so more than ever. For South Africa specifically, we have it's a one-way valve. It's almost like a, what is it, which pneumothorax? Is it a closed or a closed pneumothorax? Okay, cut that part out because it's probably not medically right what I just said there. But anyway, so we're hemorrhaging vets.
Yeah.
And we've done a glorious job by not having us on the critical skills list. So that was a great dropped ball from our government, but again,
So explain to our listeners, obviously the critical skills list is a list which allows foreign vets to be able to come and work in South Africa.
Yes, to get
and they've
working.
been removed, so we can no longer employ foreign vets.
Foreign vets, which if you say that sentence back to yourself,
Is devastating.
it's quite interesting. So if I'm a young vet and I was being paid a pretty sweet salary, and I have literally all of these amazing countries, Australia, UK, New Zealand. I love South Africa and don't want to live anywhere else. But they're offering you massive amounts of money. They're offering you working visas. They're offering you the world. They're literally like, come and I will make your life amazing.
And
Just
when you've got
come.
student debt and you're itching to travel.
And we've got the, interesting times that is South Africa. It's like, why wouldn't you go overseas and give it a go? So this is the problem, is that we've got these amazing countries that are all fishing in our South African pond, and we've got no way of replacing like think of a trout dam. You Okay, I like fly fishing, so that's why I'm talking about trout. But you've got all these fish being fished out and no way of restocking the dam. Like, who thought this through and thought this would be a good idea? No one, and that's the problem.
And the remaining vets are under
So now you've got
extreme
remaining
pressure.
vets that have already been struggling as it is with the realities of our profession. Now you've got no vets. Now practice owners are having to, whilst trying to manage and own a business, manage the finances behind a veterinary practice, which is really challenging. And the general public is not aware of that, which is sad. Are now having to step back into clinical roles because they don't have staff to fill the shifts. And then you've got vets who are like, okay, I finally do want to talk about mental health and compassion fatigue and burnout. Hey, I'm drowning. Can I please take some time off? And everyone's like,
No,
you can't take time off.
In our day, we never had time off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's no one to like tap out to. And I mean, this is just the smallies industry. Equine industry is even worse. There are no equine vets. So when you start to talk about it, you almost start to get like a bit panicky, like, where is this going? Where's this going? And so if I think about it from Khula's perspective, in our perception, the only way we're going to get this right is obviously to better equip the vets that are coming out, make them really passionate about staying in South Africa.
And support them, because they're not going to get that kind of support going
And the grass is
abroad.
not greener overseas.
No.
Like, I love the fact that my business partner has gone and worked overseas. You know, she's gone and locumed all over the UK. So she can say to them with absolute certainty, the grass is not greener.
And I can say with certainty,
And you can say,
having worked for 4 years in London, that I came this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, being a South African, I was able to. No critical skills
And
issues, but
the irony is we have, and maybe this is a bit, might have to take this out, but Onderstepoort is graduating foreign vets, as in, so like people who are, let's say, from Israel come and study at Onderstepoort, they get our degree, and they're not allowed to stay. They get sent back out again because of our issue with visas, working visas, and home affairs and all of that stuff. Like, I can't actually compute that.
It's awful.
We have people who have spent their whole lives trying to become vets, like South African kids that are dying to become vets, can't get in, and then we're sending vets that we have qualified away because of our critical skills list and home affairs. So that makes me want to vomit in my hand and clap, if you think about that. Like, it's just so bad. But I'm probably not answering the questions correctly. I'm like going all over the jaw here. But so anyway, that is why we have such a shortage. So we are literally, there is mass immigration of vets, and I can't blame them.
And some vets who are remaining here are not remaining practicing as in consulting vets.
And that's part of the guilt. So when I was 4 years in and I was like, I want to leave private practice, there was this guilt that I am selling out, that I am, going over to the dark side, that is industry, you just want a cushy corporate job. So it's, our nurses, our vet nurses, that happens a lot. Vet nurses probably work the hardest of everyone because there's usually one vet nurse, if you're lucky, in a massive, in a practice. So you've got 8 vets asking one nurse to do stuff. And so that is challenging. And so the vet nurses often are the ones that will move out of private practice into industry. So now we have this severe shortage of vet nurses. So that's why we're having to pull animal health technicians into the small animal industry, which is now creating its own frictions. So it's quite an interesting arena right now.
It is.
That makes for opportunities. I mean, there wouldn't be a Khula if
and
this
there will
wasn't.
be some adjustment and potentially a new sort of equilibrium reached at some point. But
at some point it's going to level out, but what's the cost?
Yeah. So you touched on the animal health technicians. So it's not only vets that you support in your training. It's the whole team, isn't it?
Yeah,
From
it's the
assistants to health technicians to nurses to receptionists. I mean, you do reception training.
Yeah, so we, and it's been quite interesting how it almost was like we had to mature and grow confidence in our own concept and idea. So like, it was laughable because I'm mentoring people about, having confidence and walking into private practice on day one and like owning your degree and then feeling like a total fraud because I'm like, well, what the hell do I...
Imposter syndrome.
What on earth can I teach young vets? Like, I'm hardly a veterinary guru. But yes, so part of dealing with the lack of vets is, okay, we're not going to get more vets anytime soon. So we're going to have to empower their support staff around them so that we can all start working more efficiently with our time. And obviously that's when we started making our additional courses. Animal health technicians, okay, we need animal health technicians to come into small lease industry, but you guys don't have that training. You know, you are mainly production for animal focused, and you mainly like disease management and control. So then that's why we have this course too. Not that they can do things they're not allowed to do legally, but so that they can do the stuff they are allowed to do better. And it's quicker for the vets to get them on board, because we got to buy time, because us vets sell our professional time. So that's very meaningful for me, because time and me have always had a love-hate relationship. And when I was practicing, I'm just too thorough a vet. I mean, Carra, you've seen me. I've done a locum shift. I'm the chop who's there till like 10 o'clock
Writing
at
up
night.
Notes. Giving your best.
It's like I care too much, and I was too thorough. That's just my style of veterinary practice.
And that's the kind of vet you want to be for.
But it's not realistic in our profession. You can't.
Yeah.
So the vets that usually are very thorough, very client relationship focused, and it's very inspiring for me when I work with those young vets, because I'm like, I've been there, let me give you some tips and tricks to sort it out. But it's very hard to practice in the current arena that is what our profession needs to be, because things need to be done quick. You got to do 15, 30-minute consults, that's your bundle, and then you got to move on. And so that creates pressure. I can't remember where I was going with the story. What was I talking about?
So even from receptionists, it's also,
teams.
You know, I mean, I really feel for the receptionists, because they deal with that initial stress. You've got your client in front of you who's probably emotionally just devastated, and they face a lot.
They face a lot.
A lot.
So veterinary receptionists, so we launched our vet receptionist course this year. It's almost like we finally were like, okay, we're ready, let's do this, because it's a very competitive market, training vet receptionists. And it's also it's very multi-layered, you know what I mean? If anything, they're at the coalface. We, us vets, think we are, but we've got if we think that the general public treats us like dirt, take it one level further. And I don't want to generalize. There's many amazing pet owners that have wonderful, that are literally there for our expertise and our vet services.
And we appreciate them.
And we love them. And that's why we are able to keep our doors open, and why we do it. But there is a small portion of the public that are total gremlins, and they need to pull their socks up and do better. But that's maybe a conversation for another day. And that's just people, that humanity, I guess.
Yeah, I think you get that everywhere.
I guess, because you talk to other professions and they're like, welcome to the club. I was talking to my dentist and he's like, welcome to the club. So, also us vets must try not play our veterinary violence too hard and long, because it's not just us.
Yeah.
But, vet receptionists, so this has been really cool. We made a 12-module course online because, obviously with load shedding, trying to do live presentations doesn't work. And it was centered around, because we were like, well, what can we really...
What do they need?
What do they need, number one, and what can we really talk about? And it was through the eyes of a veterinarian. What do I need from my receptionist? And communicating that to them so that they understand what the hospital team is experiencing, those pressure points. Because there's often, I'm sure as you know, Carra and experienced, there's a disconnect between the front team and the hospital team. And they're often slinging mud at each other. So when protocols are breaking down, when stuff's not going well, often it's this divide, and the divide gets bigger and bigger. And I'm sure Desiree can attest to that, because she's often having to go in and try and
manage it and
stick the team back together, or find ways for the team to come back together. So that was very inspiring for us to be we're going to really empower our receptionists to have a better understanding of primary health care. So why do we need to communicate the importance of flea and tick vaccinations, sterilizations, microchipping, all of that? What are your vets doing at the back? What are your nurses doing at the back? Why are they so grumpy when you walk in and ask...
How to approach a vet.
When you ask him for a pet insurance form to be signed and we've got an animal that's gone into cardiac arrest, pick your moment. And then I guess the primary driving factor of the whole course was, how do we make a premium client service experience? Because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
We think it's centered around the animal. Of course it is. That's the patient is primary, focus. But you've got to serve the pet owner. And if you're not going to do that with, real what's the word? With everything you've got, they're going to go elsewhere because there's a vet on every corner. And we're not doing our industry any service or any favors if we don't empower the pet owner as well. So it's not just about empowering vets. It's like we've bred these pet owners. It's almost like a highly bred French bulldog with a million problems. And then we're like, why is it so sick? Well, we have made pet owners what they are today, us vets, over the generations, because we haven't valued our, in my opinion, now let me not act like I'm the authority on life here. In my opinion, we've almost made a lat vir 'n gat. I don't know, that's probably a bad thing to say in Afrikaans. But we've made this problem because we have undervalued ourselves for all of these years. And now we have pet owners who don't understand why our fees cost as much as they do. They don't understand the cost of veterinary care. And so that conversation has to start all the way from the receptionist all the way through to the vets and the specialists. And again, it's like we're breeding a new generation of vets, but we're also breeding a new generation of pet owners, hopefully, that are more informed and are actually willing to take back the responsibility of looking after their pets the right way.
So from receptionists, like you say, the full team, you can look after them in terms of individual training modules and having more of a cohesive team. So you reception talk to get them to understand why the vet's behave in a certain way and vice versa. Respect your receptionist, this is how they can assist you. And hopefully that's going to feed into the aim, which is to be good vets and good service providers and provide great patient care, because that's ultimately why we're there. Absolutely.
And it's about, with regards to, so we partner a lot with Human Co. So if I get contacted by a practice and it's very clear this is a human skill or a soft skill issue, I refer them to Human Co. and vice versa. So our thing is really we focus on like the clinical fundamentals. So we have a course literally called Clinical Fundamentals Part 1 and 2, where we're like, what is a cruciate ligament rupture? And we talk it in a language that the vet receptionist will understand. They're never expected to diagnose. We don't want them to do that.
No.
It's obviously, as you know, the complete opposite to what we want. But we want them to understand the condition so they can better relate to the pet owner, so they can better relate to the vet and the nurse, and they can give a better service. And then that, ultimately, the goal is for us vets to generate more time so we can see more patients, so we can serve the community, and so that we can have successful businesses, so we can hire more support teams, so we can better support the vets.
Khula Bespoke, and that bespoke means that you really can tailor make the training to suit the practice needs.
Yes.
And so if owners or vets are wanting to contact you, what's the best way of communicating?
So we've got our, on our website, and we've got our cell phone numbers and our email addresses, so either just pop us a WhatsApp or give us an email, and then we book a meeting with the practice owner and then with the staff member, and we identify the needs and then tailor the course accordingly.
Okay.
So that obviously comes at a cost, and we're very much all about fair exchange. So I can't preach value your veterinary services if I'm not going to follow through with that. And that's also why we've made group online pre-recorded stuff, because it certainly makes it more cost effective. So it's really, I'd like to say it's a menu that's going to suit, or an offering that's going to suit different individuals.
So individual needs as well as a team.
Yes.
Okay. And so people can approach you and say, look, this is where I'm seeing a need, or this is the issue we're having, and you can say, look, I can see that that's a deficit in this area.
Yeah.
Let's come together and address those things, whether it's additional training for a vet in a particular area, or reception or animal health technicians.
Yeah.
And what I love is, particularly here in KZN, is the fact that you speak Zulu fluently. So, in terms of, dealing with assistants, you're talking in their language, which I think is, I can't tell you how valuable that is. Because
it definitely helped bridge that connection. It's also always interesting when the skinny little white girl goes and talks to a whole bunch of African gentlemen, and culturally that's always a fun platform to start. But once you crack open a bit of Zulu, then it's like and that for me probably was one of our most meaningful workshops we did, was our hospital assistant course.
Because often they are sort of neglected a little bit, aren't they?
They are, and they're undervalued.
Yeah.
And they sometimes feel very uninspired by their jobs because they get to a certain level of competence and they're really good, and then they cap and they don't progress. So last year we did our first one in Cape Town, had 50 hospital assistants from all over Cape Town came and spent a whole day with us on a Sunday, and we had a team of vets and nurses, and they rotated, and we had vets spaying and showing exactly how we want you to clip, how we want you to prep, and we gave them the why behind what we're asking. It's not just because the vet said or because the doctor asked it. Why is the doctor asking it? And that was really meaningful when you saw the aha moments there, where they were like, I get it now. And some of the questions, I was like, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to have to crack a book. I was like, I'll get back to you. But they're good. And and that's what we drive with our young vets. And not everyone's young. A lot of these vets have got like master's degrees, and then they finally get into vet science. So young is maybe the wrong word, but newbies. Newbie vets. That's a nice term. I'm going to use that, Carra. The newbie vets, we strongly advise that they learn from their hospital assistants, that they treat them with maximal respect, that they take the time to understand the cultural differences, because if you're not in a good place with your hospital assistants, your kennel assistants, you might as well pack up and go home.
Move practice.
And the way that they work with our patients is phenomenal, and that often makes me sad, because you heard how in COVID we all sat in a group and they were talking about how pet owners treated them in COVID. And I know that everyone just behaved like gremlins in COVID because it was a very dark time and strange time. But the general public has no idea how talented those individuals are and how needed they are.
They're brilliant.
They are phenomenal.
I don't know what we would do with our assistants.
No, nothing. Really. We wouldn't do anything because we can't.
We'd be lost.
And they just, so you'll see that a happy veterinary team is often when you've got a strong team of receptionists and a strong team of hospital assistants. And then you can throw any vet in there. Anyway. They'll actually be fine.
Oh, they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Oh, Charlotte, this has been so informative. Thank you for taking the time to take us through the bespoke training as well as your CCS support. Pleasure. And I wish you all the best for your future. Awesome. Thank you for putting all this in place, because I certainly need it.
Pleasure. Hopefully we get there. Let's see.
Will.
But I think South Africa's going places. We've just got to stick it out and stay.
Yep, stay. Thanks. As we conclude this engaging episode of the Pause and Effect podcast with Dr. Charlotte, her journey from small animal practice to the founding of Khula Vet shines as a testament to the importance of mentorship, addressing vet shortages, and prioritizing well-being in the veterinary field. Through insightful discussions, we've unraveled the challenges veterinarians face today, and Khula's Vet holistic approach stands out as a beacon of hope. Dr. Charlotte's partnership with Dr. Michelle exemplifies their commitment to empowering colleagues for a brighter future. As we part ways, let's carry forward the lessons learned here, understanding that with each step, every veterinarian leaves an incredible mark on the lives of our animals and their human companions. We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behavior? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at Dr. Carra at pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.